Hey guys, welcome back to r/JustNoHOA. In this video, a homeowner association stole my electricity, claiming the HOA has a right to take from my property. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is a malicious compliance story. So I work in the distribution center for an electrical appliance brand. I'm a forklift operator. We use fork trucks to transport smaller appliances on pallets, such as microwaves and vacuum cleaners, but we use counterbalance trucks with clamp attachments for transporting large appliances such as washing machines and fridges. Our fridges can be packed two different ways. Sometimes they're in boxes with polystyrene for protection, and sometimes there's just plastic over the polystyrene. The plastic packaged fridges are slippery and can sometimes slip from the clamps, while the boxed fridges don't slip easily because there's more friction. This is actually important to the story. So this morning I was tipping a container full of fridges. They were all plastic packed. To fit as much as possible on the container, the loaders put fridges lying on their side on top of fridges that are standing upright. These top fridges can be fiddly to take out, and once out they are placed on what I call the flipper, which is a pile of pallets stuck together with a flat board stuck on top. We use the edge to rotate the fridge upright. As I was taking one of these top fridges out, it slipped within the clamp. I still had a hold of it, but it was now at an angle with the top pointing towards the ground and now almost impossible to put down without damaging it. We don't get in trouble for damages. Management accepts that stuff gets damaged sometimes. Also, most damages are just to the packaging, so they just need to be repackaged. However, we try to save something if we can. This was not one of the times where this would be likely though. One of my coworkers still wanted to save it and was standing behind the flipper ready to grab it. He told me to open my clamps slightly and let it fall slowly. This only works with boxed fridges. There's no friction to stop or slow down a plastic wrapped fridge, even with the tiniest amount of slack. Where he was standing, he was in danger of being hit by the fridge, and I told him so. The other guys chimed in and told me to let it go, and I refused until he moved away, which he finally did. As predicted, I opened my clamps the tiniest amount and it dropped fast, with the back end bouncing upwards right to where his face would have been. Had I maliciously complied, he might have ended up with a broken nose or jaw. Told you so, I said. Despite the drop, there was minimal damage, just a small crack in the polystyrene. And yeah, ripe stars, I'm not sure if this qualifies as malicious compliance. I would rather say it is benevolent disobedience or something like that. I suppose that would be preferable compared to maliciously complied manslaughter. Getting a fridge dropped on your face is certainly nothing to joke around with. Anyway, the next one is the title story, and it's titled HOA Stole Electricity from My Beach House. An HOA really assumed they could steal my electricity, and I just would not question that fact when I got the bill in the mail. I would give anything to see if they gave the idea more than 3 seconds of thought before just barreling into a plan that dumb. I'm not always at this house because it's my beach home and I mainly go there for vacations in the summer. My siblings all use the house, but it's in my name, so the bills come to me. Usually at this time of year, the place is empty and things like water and electricity are very small bills since nobody is there using it. Even when it is in use, the most I've ever seen the electric bill go up to was around $200 when a ton of us stayed there for a long summer holiday. I actually called the company wanting to know if this was a mistake because when I opened the bill, it was for $2,000. 10 times the max amount I've ever paid. They confirmed that it was correct, and I knew that I had to go down and try to figure out what was using that much electricity. It was a 4-hour drive down to the property, and at first glance everything seemed normal. That was until I noticed wires running out of my backyard and under a fence. I'll admit that it was probably trespassing, but I started hopping a couple fences to see where I ended up. Behind my house was one owned by an HOA board member, and then the next fence jump led to the community center run by the HOA. The wiring was hooked up to both the house and the building, which was now making the large bill make sense. The HOA and I always had problems because I spent years refusing to join them. I did not live there year-round and saw no point in spending money on it. I had enough people bothering me in life, I did not need to add an HOA to the mix. They also knew when the house was not occupied and probably figured they would get away with this crap until I got back home. I went into the center to try and talk to the HOA president, who I know is always there. I had a huge fight at the front door because they didn't want to let me in the building due to not being a member. He was basically trying to hide, but I was not going to have it. I told the person running the center that if he did not let me in to talk to the president, I would call the police. I saw him quickly after that and asked him why the hell they were taking electricity from my house to the center. He started making up crap about how that was not true and blah blah blah. Meanwhile, I took photos of all the wiring, so even if he destroyed the evidence, I was good to go. I told him that I wanted the $2,000 for the bill and for the setup to be removed right then and there. He refused to do so, and while I could unplug this from my house, I could not force him to give me the money. Not without a big fat lawsuit, and you can bet I did not hesitate on that front. I got a lawyer and explained everything and that I was looking to get my money back. This lawsuit was a little bit messy because it involved the HOA as a whole, but also the specific member living in that house and the community center director as well. Also all members of the board, so it was not too complicated, but still a bit of a mess when it came to who exactly owed me what. Now in court, the president was trying to argue that they did not steal my electricity, but instead just enacted one of the HOA clauses, claiming that due to emergency they had to reroute power to places in need. Excuses being that the community center was helping the elderly and that the house needed power for somebody on life support. Also, the money for the electric bill just needed to be filed and then I would get the money back in way of not owing any dues. There were so many holes in that story, and even the judge was quick to point out most of them. They had zero proof that there was any outages in the area causing a loss to begin with, and they also had no statements of people needing life support or that the center was designated for elderly care. All of which are needed in order for them to be able to do something so drastic. Then my lawyer felt right then was the perfect time to point it out to the judge that I was not even a member of this HOA. Then they offered the following. They wanted to pay me back by not having me pay dues that I already did not pay, obviously by not being an HOA member. The HOA president was not looking as smug as when he walked in, and neither did any of the other board members. Judge, you're telling me that this man is not even a member of the HOA, and that you, without his knowledge, consent, or just because used his electricity and tried to stick him with the bill. Do you have any reason that I shouldn't give him the money and ask police to start an investigation into you all? HOA lawyer, they have never been in trouble with the law before. The man's non-HOA position was possibly not known to them. Aside, there's no proof that the entire bill was for my client's use and instead could have come from the house. Judge, the house that nobody was living in based on what your clients just told me. The burden of knowing if he was an HOA member was also on your client before they did anything. I'm granting the full amount of $2,000. Aside from getting my money, he did alert the police to look into the HOA and make sure nothing criminal was going on. It turned out there was plenty going on that went against the law they would have kept getting away with if the police did not dig into them. Taking funds for themselves, making rules that went against people's freedoms, etc. They ended up getting shut down and all the board members got in some trouble with the law. Not sure exactly, since I was not part of that and was not around for much of the backlash. I just know that the next time I went to the vacation house with my family, the HOA did not exist anymore. They probably could have kept getting kickbacks and cheating the system in small ways for years if they did not get greedy and try to steal electricity from me. Hell, if they just gave me the bill money when I first confronted them, I might not have sued. HOAs will just keep being stupid and getting shut down for it due to messing with the wrong people. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is a petty revenge story. After I joined the army for my mandatory 9-month service, I was forcibly given the specialty of the cook. After some surprisingly harsh training, they sent me to an outpost where I had to do 2 daily services, one as a cook and one as an area observer, while everyone else did 1 to 0 services, for about 50 days non-stop. That meant I was on my feet from 6 AM to 2:30 AM every single day, while getting 3.5 hours of sleep every night. Nobody helped me in any way. I did not have nearly enough time to prepare the food properly. They claimed it was not protocol to help the cook and nobody cared, so naturally I got extremely tired and pissed off. One day I dared to protest my situation and also report some problems with the kitchen, lack of supplies in the oven itself, and was told to just shut up, stop complaining and do my job. So I decided to comply with the shut up and don't complain policy. What they did not know was that I had found a trick to turn the oven on. It looked fine, but the food would not cook at all. The next day I was gonna prepare a stuffed vegetable dish for 12 people, tomatoes and peppers stuffed with rice and minced meat. I put it in the oven and waited for 4 hours to not be cooked. I casually served the raw food, which had become mushy and rancid because it was summertime. The look on everyone's face when they tried to eat the first bite was absolutely priceless. They immediately snapped and started freaking out, yelling and screaming in anger like this was a common thing, even though I had never failed a dish before. Those arrogant, selfish pricks ate like kings every day. I maliciously smiled and told them that I lacked half of my supplies and the recipe was wildly incomplete while the oven was malfunctioning. Word reached the captain, who also freaked out, but I told him that it was him who commanded me to shut up about the food problems. He said my failure should be reported and I agreed. I immediately called my unit and reported that I was being mistreated, overworked, sleepless and ignored for 43 consecutive days, so this resulted to my failure. The next day I heard the captain was reprimanded severely by our colonel commander for the crappy situation in his outpost. Of course, the next 3 days I did the exact same thing and I starved the guys to insanity. Afterwards, they were begging me to help me out with the food preparations, but I refused since I complied with "it's not protocol to help the cook" policy, which they claimed in the first place, and kept feeding them disgusting, tasteless food under the excuse of a broken oven. They called the unit and cried that I'm holding them hostage with the food and I should be removed. The day I was removed 1 week later was the best day of my life. I have not regretted anything and 100% would do it again. And the next one is another malicious compliance story. Getting lunch several years ago with some colleagues. We had finished and I was backing out of my parking spot into the road with the other 2 gentlemen I was with in the car with me. We are all professionals, all in suits, all clean-cut adults. Clearly not folks trying to pull anything. We are leaving lunch. As I back out, I feel a thud. A young college student had backed into the side of my vehicle. I say side to establish an important fact. I was already in the middle of the road. The college student was backing out of a spot across the street. When they stuck me, I was already in the road and the collision was their fault. I get out and it's no big deal to me. I tell them I'm fine swapping insurance and I'll file and get it taken care of. The college student has already called their parents though, and apparently when explaining things to dad they told a few, well, let's just say half-truths to insinuate that it was actually my fault. Old dad on the phone insisted on calling the police to get a report and tried to keep me from skating. Fine by me, cue malicious compliance. Call the cops and they eventually arrive. Before I moved my vehicle, I took photos of the scene from every angle and did a video walk around. The cop opens his door parked across the street and the college student beelines it for him. Talking 90 miles a minute, complete with wild hand movements, trying to model what happened as they walked. I don't hear what college student says, but I do hear the cop at this point beside the damage to my vehicle say, "Yeah, what you're saying clearly didn't happen here, kiddo." Cop got all the insurance info exchanged. Then talked to me and my 2 colleagues who presented consistent stories that matched a clear dent in my vehicle. Then went over with a ticket pad to the college kid. He hollered for me to go on about my day from across the street, all the while the kid was trying to talk out of a ticket. Their insurance paid to fix everything. I tried to save them the ticket, but well. And yeah, ripe stars, obviously the golden rule is, if you're not in the right and obviously wrong, just shut up and don't try to be a know-it-all. That kid certainly learned a lesson today. And the next one is a story from r/entitledpeople. For some background, I am Native American, my mom is from a Plateau tribe and my dad is a Plains tribe. I grew up learning both languages since my best friend was always at my house and also grew up on the reservation. She was surrounded by the language and culture. Now, my best friend, who I'll call Mandy, is white. By the time we both left high school, Mandy could speak both my tribal language as well as any tribal member. I have this habit whenever I get excited or emotional, I speak one of my tribal languages. This is a habit that Mandy picked up as well. Now, the story happens in a department store that sells food and other goods. I had to grab something in electronics and Mandy went to the grocery section to stock up on junk food. She was reaching for some chips when multiple bags fell and she yelled in a Native American language. A woman, I will call Karen, overhears and walks up to Mandy and starts lecturing her about speaking gibberish and setting a bad example for children that could be nearby. Mandy explained that she was speaking a Native American language of a local tribe. This set the woman off even more. Karen started going off on how it was wrong for Mandy being white and speaking that language. Karen said Mandy was racist and to stop pretending and whatnot. I happened to come in at the tail end and asked what the problem was. Karen saw that I was Native American and told me I should stay away from that racist trash, aka Mandy. I started to get very upset after that, but tried to remain calm. I just said, "Miss, this is my best friend, and though we don't share blood, she is my family. She grew up on the reservation with me, so of course she knows our culture and language. How is her learning my culture and language any different than people who learn Spanish or French? Furthermore, military families that live overseas that pick up a second language." I don't know if Karen understood anything I was saying because her face did not change, she just turned and walked away. And yeah, Ripe Stars, unfortunately, I have to share a secret with you guys, because secretly, according to Karen's standards in the story, I am apparently a racist as well, because I know the Thai language quite well, and I also understand the culture, so clearly I must be a terrible racist. No, but to be real with you guys, that has to be one of the dumbest Karens I've ever read about. Anyway, the next one is another story from r/entitledpeople. My husband and I rent a display space in an antique/consignment store for our collective side hustles. I quilt and crochet and my husband sells custom die-cast cars and diorama supplies. Every few weeks we go in and restock our space. This store is very large and can be a bit of a maze, and the store has designated rest stops throughout the aisles. One is across from our space. The store does not provide mobility aids for customers, so it is a BYO policy if you need a walker or wheelchair. I'm a wheelchair user as I'm paralyzed from an L2 SCI. My husband and I were at the store restocking the space, and my husband had just left to make one of our totes out to our van, leaving me in our space sorting through my tote at the baby sets I make. When I hear someone huffling behind me, I did not really pay too much attention to it, thinking that someone might have been taking a break at the rest stop. I was just finishing laying out my sets on the table in our space when the person at the rest stop decided to talk to me. "Do you know if the store has wheelchairs for people to use?" I look up from my task and see an elderly couple across from our space. The old man is standing next to the bench looking kind of annoyed, while the woman has flopped on the bench in an "I cannot take another step" kind of way. I honestly was concerned that she might have been having a medical issue as she was rather plump. "Are you okay?" I ask, and I'm about to tell her or her partner to use the phone above the bench to reach the staff desk for help. "This store is too big," Harriet exclaims. "I cannot walk anymore." Me, "The store has a chair for medevac use. One of the employees could bring it to you if you need help leaving." Harriet, "But we are not done shopping." Me, "I don't think they have wheelchairs to borrow. They've had issues with rowdy kids riding mobility scooters, so they don't provide them. But if you use the phone above you, you can ask a staff member. Just dial 1 and it will connect you to the staff desk. There is a sign next to the said phone that states this. Harriet seems to be thinking about her options, so I go about my work. Neil wanders down the aisle, possibly looking for an escape route. Harriet, "What about the wheelchair you're sitting in?" Me, "That's my personal wheelchair. It doesn't belong to the store." Harriet, "Can I borrow it?" What? Surely she's not asking to take my chair to go shopping. Harriet, "I want to use the wheelchair." "You're young enough that you could stand to walk for a bit. I will bring it back." Me, "Ma'am, I cannot stand at all. I've been a paraplegic since I was 12. This wheelchair is not store issued. It's my personal property that cost a lot of money. If you call the staff, maybe they can let you use the medical chair, or maybe they know of one someone has in their space that you can buy. But I will not give you my chair and I cannot help you." At this point, I have rolled out of our space. I decided to head towards the vendor door and just leave. Rumor has it, Harriet is still sitting on the bench waiting for someone to give her a wheelchair. And by the way, Ripe Stars, in this story, I was just waiting for Karen to say that OP is too young to sit in a wheelchair and thus she has a right to use his wheelchair. Those are my favorite type of stupid Karens. Or well, I guess not my favorite, but the ones I despise the most. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.